All right, hello everyone. Just gonna go ahead and get started here, but I just want to make sure that everyone is able to hear me and seeing me. So give me a thumbs up if you're seeing me. I see a few people waving and thumbs up. Awesome. All right, well, I'm excited to be with you today. We are going to go through and just talk about some of the basics on Zap. So I have pretty much, I think I have everyone muted. So what I'm going to do is just go through and show you some of the things from Zap. I'm going to show you the features that it has and some of the things that you're going to want to do with your system to make sure that you're ready to go as far as being able to have your clients seeing it and all those kinds of things. So we're going to go through that, and then what I will do is at the end I'll allow you to unmute yourself so that you can be able to ask any questions and things. And so somebody's asking, I thought this was on Zoom, not Zap. If I said Zap, I apologize. I meant Zoom. I will be doing Zap tomorrow. So yeah, so Zoom is what we are talking about today. So thank you for that catch, Lillian. All right. So here's what I'm going to do is I first just, I guess, want to just talk to you and give you some of the basics about Zoom. Now, on Zoom, what we want to do is for most all of us that are on here, you're going to be just fine with the basic account, which is really a free Zoom account. Now, let me explain how that works. And then what we'll do is I'm going to then show my screen so that I can start showing you how Zoom works and the features and things that Zoom has. In fact, so forgive me if I do throw out Zap, too many Z's, I think, going on with Zap and Zoom, but we are doing Zoom. So the basic account, so your account that you can get for free that you just can go sign up with. One of the important things to keep in mind and remember as part of this is with your free Zoom account, the basic one, you can do unlimited one-on-one meetings. So if it's you and one of your clients, you can do unlimited. There's not a set amount of time or anything that you're stuck with in doing that. So you could jump on with a client and be on there for longer than 40 minutes. But in the event you add a third person, so if you end up with more than you and one other person, then under that basic account, it is now going to limit you to 40 minutes. So you've got to take care of everything within that 40-minute time span. So just keep in mind that piece of it is that if you, so if for some reason, if you ended up having to have, you know, the husband on one and the wife on another, and you've got the 3 people on there, you're going to now be limited to only 40 minutes. Now, what you would probably need to do if that's the case is then once that 40 minutes is up, it's just going to cut you off if you have more than the one-on-one on there. It's just going to cut you off. So you would want to just let your client know if it looks like it's going to take longer than that, you would want to just let them know, okay, here's what's going to happen is if we hit 40 minutes, then I'm just going to have to call you back. Once you call them back and jump into another Zoom meeting with them, then you would now have another 40 minutes. So just keep that in mind that 99% of the time, you're probably going to be just fine because it's typically going to be just you and your client, in which case there's no limit on the 40 minutes. You can talk to them as long as you need to. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump in and share my screen with you so that you can start to see what this is going to look like. So I'm going to share my desktop there, and hopefully you're able to see. We're not getting the controls here. You're not seeing any of my Zoom controls, are you? All right, let me change that and see if I can grab a different one here. All right, well, I may just have to walk you through it because I was thinking as I did this share that it was going to be able to show you my Zoom. So actually, let me try this here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into, nope, that's not going to work either. Okay, so can Becky just stuck her head in and was saying that you can see the controls on here, but I'm not seeing them on mine is the problem. All right. All right. Well, so here's what I'm going to do. You should be able to, on your own, see them at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is just walk you through what they each of them are. So at the very bottom on the left-hand side, you're going to see the mute. You're going to see a little microphone there. So with that, that is how you're going to mute or unmute yourself, which, as I said, for this meeting, I have all of you muted and you don't have the ability to unmute yourself. So it's going to stay on there as muted. But just know, with you and your client, you can then put the mute on there. You'll see a little caret off to the right-hand side of that, or an up arrow. If you click on that, you will see that this is where you can get your sound set up. So what I have found is a lot of times this is probably the hardest part that most people are having is, okay, I'm on with my Zoom, but I can't hear anything, or people can't hear me. So you'll notice when you do that, you'll see in there, it gives you a bunch of different options. But one of the options when you click on that caret is test speaker and microphone. If you click on that test speaker and microphone, it will walk you through getting that set up. So what happens at first is when you click on that test speaker and microphone, it's going to start to play some music or some sounds, and it's going to ask you, can you hear the sound? If you click yes, then it's going to say, great, there's your sound. Then it's going to test your microphone, where it's going to have you talk. And as long as it can, you will hear yourself talking back, then you know you've got your microphone set up as well. All right, the next thing. So, so Cindy's now sharing her screen with us. So one of the things that I have turned on for right now is the ability that, and you guys want to keep this in mind, especially if you're doing any type of a group meeting, that one of the settings, and I will show you these in just a second here, one of the settings you want to make sure you have is turned off the screen share for your participants, because anybody can jump in and do that. And I understand that in the elementary schools, teachers are using this Zoom, and people have been hacking into that, and then they start sharing their screen, which is showing inappropriate pictures and things. So just keep that in mind, and I'll show you where you can turn that off in just a second. So the next thing over on the bottom is the stop video. So if I click on that, you'll notice I just went off the screen, and now it's just showing the Century 21 Everest logo. So that's how you're going to control your screen on or off. Now, on that, keep in mind that one of the things that I would recommend for you guys to do is, before you do a Zoom class, stop and turn around and say, what are people going to see behind me? Because it's interesting what some of the people, what you are able to see in people's houses and things. So keep that in mind. Now, there is another option for that, which I'll show you here as well. If you click on the arrow that is to the right of the stop video, it's going to bring up and it's going to show you which camera you're on, and then you'll see choose a virtual background. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and select one where I wish I was right now, and that is in Hawaii. So I just took that off, and now you can see it still shows me there, but you can see this virtual background showing there. So one of the things you may want to do, as I said, when you turn around and look to see what's behind you, if the view is not that great, then what you want to do is do one of those virtual backgrounds. And if you take a look at Janet Dorsey, if you can see her on there, she's got a library. She went and downloaded a bunch of different things on there. So that's where that is going to be controlled. So like I said, if you have, when you turn around and look, and if your room is kind of a mess, I would highly recommend you put on one of these virtual backgrounds to hide from your clients being able to see the mess that's in your house. All right, I'm going to turn mine back off here again. All right, so that's the bottom part of that. The next thing over is got an invite with a plus sign. So there's a couple of different ways you can go about inviting your clients into the meetings. So one of them is through that invite right there. So if you click on that invite, it's going to bring up and allow you to copy the URL, and then from there you could send that to your client. So that's probably the last way you're going to do it. You're not going to be doing that very often. So what you're going to probably end up doing instead, I will show you in just 1 minute. Okay, so I just want to go through the bottom controls here, and then I'm going to show you in the settings where you're going to set some of this stuff up. So that's the invite. To the right of that, you're going to see manage participants. So typically, if you are the one running the meeting, you're going to be able to pull up and see the participants that are in the class. This is where you can go through and mute people. You can turn off their video or turn on their video, those type of things. The next one is screen share. Now this one is where this one's going to be really important, especially if you're doing a listing presentation or you're talking with a buyer that you're wanting to show them some comparables on your computer. So what you will do, now don't everyone do this, because then it's gonna, if you actually click on this share screen, you're gonna be sharing yours to all of us. But I'm gonna click on screen share, and then from there, so if you click on screen share, you can pull it up. Just don't actually share your screen. But what I would wanna do then is click on where, I'm gonna click on Google Chrome here, and then I'm gonna share that with you so you guys can see it. Now you're seeing my Chrome screen. So if I were to go to the MLS, which I'm just gonna go to the MLS here in Utah, you can see I could pull it in, I can log up, or excuse me, pull that up, I could log in, I could start doing a search, and all along the client is now gonna be able to see my screen to be able to see what's going on in terms of properties. So you could pull up to do a CMA for them to be able to show them those properties and things. So that is the share screen. Now, in order to stop sharing, at the top of your screen, you'll see a stop share. So as soon as you click on that, you can see it's brought me right back. The next thing over has got a chat, and that's going to allow you to be able to see the chat for anybody that's chatting with you. Now, again, like I say, for most of what you're going to be doing, you don't really need that because it's going to be just you and a client on there. And so you're probably not going to need the chat because you're just going to be chatting, or excuse me, talking to them directly. The next thing over is going to allow you, if you have a paid account, to record or not. If you don't have a paid account, you can record, but you're recording only to your computer. On the paid accounts, you can record to the cloud. So just keep that in mind. If you are wanting to record it, you can do that, but it's going to record and save it on your own computer. So it's not going to be saved in the cloud anywhere. All right, the next thing that I have in there, which you probably do not have, is breakout rooms. Now, I know there's some managers on here that this is something that the managers can use. If you wanted to, if you were going to get agents together and do some role play, you can use these breakout rooms. And if you click on it, you would just say how many people you wanted to break out into rooms with. And what you would do is decide, you can decide who's going into which room, or you can have the computer just automatically decide that for you. All right, I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen because this is probably the piece you guys are gonna want to make sure you have done in the beginning. So when you first log in to Zoom on your computer, you're gonna go to zoom.us. It's gonna have you log in, and you're gonna put in whatever your username that you create and a password. Once you are logged into that, you'll see here on the right-hand side where this is the profile. So I've got pulled up the Everest one that's got George's picture on there. Now, whatever picture you have showing right there is what is going to be showing when you're not sharing your video. So if you turn off your video, the picture that you have showing there is what will show up. So keep that in mind as well. I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm just gonna put a funny picture right there because it's my profile picture. But what's going to happen then, if you, for some reason, pause your video, that is the picture that your client is going to be seeing. So make sure that you're using a picture that you want to have set up on there. All right, the next thing down here is what's called the personal meeting ID. Now, I'll say more about that as we get into scheduling a Zoom call, but just know you have your own personal ID right there that is assigned to you from Zoom. Now, occasionally somebody will ask, well, can I change that number? If you decide you want to do a paid account with Zoom, which is like $15 per month, if you want the paid version of this, it does allow you to change your personal ID to whatever number you want it to be. So, and if you look at that number, you'll notice it's a number that you could actually set up like an area code and a phone number. So if you wanted, but again, that's not on the basic, the free account, you can't change that. But if you decide to pay for one, you can change that and control that meeting ID. Now I'll come back to that and explain a little bit more on that. Down here is going to show you what type of an account you have. Down there, what your capacity for people to be in in a training is. And probably the most important thing on this for you to see as well, beyond your picture, is that you need to be able to make sure that this time zone is set as the correct time zone for yourself as well there, okay? All right. The next thing to go through on this is going to be the settings. So I'm clicking over to settings off to the left-hand side here. I've just clicked where it says settings. Now, this is the piece you're going to want to make sure you go through and get set up before you start in using this with your clients. And I'm just going to run through what these things are, and we're not going to hit on every single thing here. Some of it will be self-explanatory and you can look at it. So you'll notice when I clicked on settings here, it's starting me right here with just on scheduling a meeting, and it shows host video is off. So what that's saying is at the start of the meeting, my video is going to be turned off. And you can have that, if I switch it, it would be turned to showing that it's on. But I want to have that left off because I'm usually going to join the meeting before I'm ready to start showing my screen. And then the next thing down is participants videos. So you're just going to decide, do you want the participants showing or not? And that part again is up to you. You may want to have it turned off just because you don't know what people are going to be showing you at the start of the meeting or before. So you may want to set that to default to off. This one is currently turned to on. The audio type, my recommendation is have it to be telephone and computer audio. That's going to give your client the option to either call in or just use the audio from their computer. And most people are going to be using the audio from their computer. All right, next, join before the host. This allows them to be able to join before you get in there. I think it's a good idea to have that turned on, is the join before the host, because that way they can show up a little bit early. It's not telling them that the meeting hasn't started yet. So I would recommend having the join before host turned on. Use personal meeting ID or PMI when scheduling a meeting. Again, you can have that turned on or off to be a default for that. I would say don't do anything, just leave that as where it is. You can have only authenticated users can join the meeting. Again, with your clients, probably don't have to worry too much about that. Require the password when scheduling a meeting. Same thing on that. I would say don't worry about scheduling a password. Really, you want to make this as easy as possible for your clients. And so really your best thing is not to turn all these things on, because it's just going to make it harder for your client to get into the meeting. Same with this, require a password for instant meetings, require a password for your personal meeting ID. This embed password link for, same thing. I mean, we've got it turned on here, but I'm not sure you really need all that. So I'm going to skip through this password stuff, because really I'm going to show you to not require a password and when we start scheduling a meeting. All right, mute participants upon entry. Now this one I've got turned on so that, again, it's set to mute them as soon as they come on. Again, with your clients, you may or may not have to worry about having it mute them right off the bat. You may want to just leave it to where that they're not muted when they come on. I mean, that's going to be up to you. This is an upcoming meeting reminder, but that's just for you. So that's going to be able to remind you. So here's some of the meeting basics. I'm going to skip over this. Require encryption. I would say leave that off. The chat, allow meeting participants to send a chat. You probably, again, with your client, you're probably not going to need that. If you're doing any type of a training with more people, then you may, I would say, to turn it on. Same with private chat being available, auto saving chats. Like I said, a lot of this you're not going to use with your client. Playing a sound when they join or leave, you probably don't need to worry about. File transfers, you probably would want to turn that on just in case you decide to share a file that you wanted to give it to one of your clients. I know the recommendation has been from Zoom, again, for some of the school things, is they're saying to turn that off so that people can't share files around. And the idea of that, again, is somebody can try to share something to you that would put a virus onto your computer. So sharing feedback to Zoom is going to allow them to be able to improve their abilities, so you can have that on or off. And then having a survey, again, I probably would turn that off. You're not going to have to worry about co-host, this polling, all of those kinds of things. You're probably not going to worry about with your client because you're not going to do a poll with them. Always show meeting control bar. I would say leave that on. Show Windows Zoom Zoom windows during a screen share. That's probably what I was missing to be able to show my controls to you guys right there. Screen sharing. So, okay, here's the screen sharing. So before I started this one, I had allowed you guys to be able to screen share. I've got it now set to who can share, and it's only the host, but that's not going to work for this meeting because I had already given it to you. So this one is one that you're probably, again, if you're doing more than just a one-on-one, I would recommend you having it set to who can share to be the host only being able to share. If you say all participants, then you can ask, you know, who can start sharing. But if I switch that, you see that gives me these different options here. But I would just say recommend having it on host only because you're probably not going to have your client share. But if for some reason you needed to, that's where you would go. All right, disable desktop or screen share for the users. This is where you can disable that for them. So I'm going to do that to where hopefully now that should, I'm just not positive that will stop it for this whole entire meeting. But all right, then annotation is to where you can put in and type in some things on the screen if you wanted to, or the whiteboard. Allow participants to share a whiteboard during the meeting, which would, again, you could then go in and draw. So like on my iPad, which I'm on my computer right now, but if I was on my iPad, I could go in there and start drawing some things that would then show on the screen for you guys. All right, I think, oh, let me go down to this in meeting advanced. The only other one would be, again, and this is for the managers that are on the call, if you want to enable breakout rooms, you would just turn that on to where, again, if you're wanting to do some role play with people, put them into rooms and have them do some role play. So there's some more advanced things you can do with that, but we're kind of going to stick with the basics today on this. All right, I think really, you know, if you kind of look through this, it'll read and tell you what a lot of these other things are. The only other one I did want to hit on right here is this waiting room. So you can see I've got it turned off. If you turn the waiting room on, what that will do is that will put people into a waiting room, so your client, to where they can't join before you, but they're sitting in a waiting room. The problem with that is then you have to go and let them in one at a time. And again, if you're doing a one-on-one, not probably a big deal if you wanted to do that. If you're doing a bigger group, like could you imagine if I had done that for today, every time somebody came and went during the middle of the class, I'd have to be allowing them into the room. So you're typically not going to want to do that. All right, so really, like I said, if you kind of just scroll through, it'll explain the rest of that. The next thing I wanted to show you guys is I wanted to go through and talk about how do you schedule one. So this is where you're probably going to use this with your clients once you decide to schedule a meeting. So I'm going to click on meetings on the left-hand side over here, and you can see the different options that I have up here is upcoming meetings, previous meetings, or personal meetings, or meeting templates. So I'm going to click schedule a meeting so I can show you how I would go through and do that. So I've clicked on schedule a meeting. So up here is where I would just now name that meeting. And you're going to probably want to just name that meeting whatever the client's name is, and you know, Joe Schmo, whatever the client's name is, put in there, talk about listing their home, or put in their address, you know, whatever you want to name it, you're going to put that in there. Once you have done that, then you'll now have the option of saying, okay, when are you going to do this meeting? And it'll bring up a calendar, and I could just select, let's say that it was going to be tomorrow at 5 p.m. The duration of that meeting, how long it's going to last, you're going to put that in there. Now, again, remember on this, if you're having more than one-on-one, if it's going to be you and two other people, you're only going to get 40 minutes. If it's one-on-one, you could, whatever you schedule it for, it'll keep going. So that's not going to automatically cut you off unless you have more than two people on the Zoom on a free account, okay? All right, if it was a recurring meeting, you can click that and set that up to be recurring. And you can see it gives me the options of is it daily, weekly, monthly, or no fixed time, which again, most of these are not going to be recurring meetings. You're just going to be doing it with your clients, so you won't do anything there. Registration required, I would say don't do that. And then the meeting ID down here. So we talked about your personal meeting ID, which is right here before. The recommendation is that you not use this, that you do this generate automatically. Now, I'll tell you why that is. And although there may be times that doing the personal meeting ID is better and easier for you. Now, here's what the idea of it is, though. If I did this meeting today and I used this personal meeting ID, and let's say that I had told my client that I had set this up and that was my personal meeting ID, anybody that has that meeting ID could now go in and join your meeting. So that's the reason that I say I'm going to recommend you click this generate automatically. That way it's going to keep your meeting ID more private. Because again, if you're just using the personal meeting ID and somebody just was like, oh, I wonder if this meeting's going on right now with this ID, and you jumped in and they had one going on, you could actually join their meeting. So rather than that, use this generate automatically. The next one down here is you can say require a password, and then you could set that up. But again, probably not. If you're doing generate automatically, you probably don't need the password. But if you are worried that somebody might jump in and you want to be able to control that, then instead you could go ahead and use your personal meeting ID and just click this require meeting password, and then change that password to a different one if you want, or use whatever the generated one for this meeting is. So that's what's going to help keep your appointments and things a little bit more private. I mean, the good news is if it's just you and a client and somebody jumps on, you're going to be able to see that somebody jumped on to that meeting, and so you're going to know right about it right away. So I don't know that I would worry about this require a meeting password. All right, next is this video. And so this, as you're setting up each one of the meetings, you're going to have the option of saying, do you want the host video to start when you first join? Do you want it on or off? And do you want your participants on or off? So you can see on this one, I've got it set for the host, for mine to be off at the start of the meeting, but the participants to be on. And however you want to do it on that is fine. Just decide how you want that to be done. I typically, again, recommend having it off. And the idea of having it off is that way I can kind of get things set up and they're not watching and seeing what I am doing. The audio, again, I would recommend putting this to both, for both computer and telephone. And then the bottom part down here is going to be your meeting options. And even if you had your settings set to not have that enabled join before host, you can turn it on right here, and the mute participants on entry you can turn on. Or again, if you wanted to enable the waiting room. Now, I'm going to say again, if you're doing one-on-one meetings, might be fine to enable the waiting room. But just remember, in order for them to get in, if you enable the waiting room, you're going to have to invite them in. And the first time I did that, I was actually confused of how do I now let them in? Well, it popped up a reminder on my screen that said let them in. But then when I had clicked I clicked somewhere else and it went away, I didn't know how to let them in. So if for some reason that happens to you and you've enabled the waiting room, which again, I'm not recommending, but if you did and it was asking you and you couldn't figure out how to let people in, if you click down on your controls at the bottom where it says participants, you'll see an option that who's in the waiting room so you can let them in. But my recommendation is don't have the enable waiting room turned on. And then record the meeting automatically. Again, if I wanted to record that, I just hit that and go to in the cloud, and then I'm going to save that meeting. So now, again, if you're using the free account, it's only going to let you record it onto your computer. So you just have to decide, do you want to be able to record or not be able to record that? All right. So at this point, I think that's just kind of the basics on how you're going to use Zoom. I almost said Zap there. So I'm going to actually go ahead now and unmute you guys. Excuse me. I'm going to leave you muted, but if you want to, I'm going to give you the ability to unmute yourself. So if you have a question that you want to ask, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. And I'm just going to ask you to mute yourself afterwards so that we don't have a bunch of people talking.
Hey, Russ, it's Tim. How you doing?
Great. How you doing, Tim?
Good. Hey, sometimes when you get a meeting sent to you, it's in blue, and then sometimes like this one was sent, it was just, something you can click on. Is there a different way to send that?
So typically, probably what's going to end up happening with that is more of it's a setting within the email when you're setting it out. If it's not set up as and this is going to be a little technical, which is kind of even over my head, but if it's not in an HTML format, then I think it won't let you click on it. You'd have to do a copy and paste that into to your browser. So
thank you.
Great question.
Ross?
Yes.
Lee Schlachter.
Hey, Lee.
My camera does not seem to work. Like for others, they will show a black screen with names or some color of name. Mine has a picture of a camera with a slash on it. I actually tried last week. I was invited to a meeting. Tried last week. I could not get the camera to work.
So what you should be able to do is down at the bottom where your stop video, if you click to the right of that, it's going to give you an option to select a camera. I would just say trying a different one of that. If that doesn't work, then that's probably even a little over my head as to, I'm not exactly sure. I would say give a call into Zoom and ask them what the problem with that is, why it's not working.
Okay. Yeah, under select camera, mine only has a easy camera selected. There's no other selections option from the select, but I will call finally.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize.
Russ,
I don't know on that. Go ahead, Rob.
what I was going to say to her is, does she know if her camera on her computer even works?
Yeah, it's a great
More than
question.
likely the camera does not, she doesn't have a camera on her computer to capture the information.
Yeah, could be.
I actually have a brand new computer, a laptop. It's like not brand new, 1 year old.
Yeah, there must be something on it that's blocking it. So yeah, I'd give a call into the help desk at Zoom.
Hey, Russ, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I need to invite my REO people across the network. When I do that, can I send out an Outlook invite that will send out correctly?
Oh, yeah, great question. Let me go back to the screen share again. I'm going to show you that. So thanks for bringing that up. So when I'm scheduling the meeting here, and I'm going to go put that in there. Actually, let me go back to one of these. So once I've scheduled the meeting, then I can come and click on, so I'll click on the morning ascent one for tomorrow. Once I've scheduled that meeting or in the process of scheduling it, you can add it to your calendar here. And if you will add it to your calendar, and typically if it's a Google Calendar, you're going to click on this one, Outlook or Yahoo. If it's not one of those three, click on the Outlook option. That .ics is going to usually cover everyone else. So when you click on that and add it to your calendar, once you add it to your calendar, it'll also give you the option to put in the email address of who you want to send it to. And if that doesn't work, or if you don't want to do it that way, then the other option is you'll see, and hopefully you guys can see on my screen right here, I'm gonna have to move the things, but it's got a copy the invitation right here. So if I click on that, that brings up the invitation, and then you can just click copy meeting invitation. And then I could go into the emails and paste that in and send it out. And so for like your REOs, that's how you would send it out to invite all of them in. The other option you could do, which is kind of what Tim was talking about, is I could just highlight this, right click, and then copy and then paste that into an email and send it out as well to get that. So yeah, great question.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so the backgrounds, I was wondering if they work with the free version, because I tried it once and I do not have a green screen, so my image was very ghostly. It kind of, you can see how right now I have my fireplace in the
Right.
It's just my room, but when I changed it to one of the backgrounds, it just didn't work because I looked like a ghost. I mean, it just
Gotcha.
my outlines basically.
Yeah, so Janet, will you speak to how because I know she downloaded some extra ones, but yes, it is included with the free account. That is for sure, because I've used it on mine on the free account, that you can do that. As far as having it looking ghostly, I'm not sure what would create that. So go ahead, Janet.
Yeah, so that happened to me as well, but you have to change, there's a setting to mirror or not mirror. It's just a checkbox. So if you check that,
I'm not sure. I have to play with that again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just down at the bottom where you would select them, there's a box that you can check for mirror my video,
Right.
Okay.
or I
thanks.
have a green screen. So yeah,
Where are those
and just
again?
make sure you don't have that checked.
Yeah, don't
What's
check
that?
the green screen.
Where do you find those again?
So to get to the backgrounds, on the bottom, you've got your mute, stop video, and then the up arrow that's to the right, and then choose virtual backgrounds.
See, I don't know if you can see right now. My eyes look kind of ghostly to me, and I'm not sure. Oh, okay. So don't check mirror. Okay, now it looks better, but it's still not right. Do you see
Yeah,
what I
still
mean?
kind of seeing your fireplace, yeah.
Yeah, but can you see my eyes are kind of blue from the background, and some of the background in my room still shows. Do you
Yeah.
see what I see, or am I just seeing it?
Well, your picture's kind of small on my screen, so I can't tell for sure. But
Okay, can anyone else
I
comment?
can see what you're talking
oh
about.
yeah, I just zoomed in. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe if I choose a different background, yeah, it's still not really coming through.
Yeah, I'm not sure on yours why that's doing that. That would maybe another one of checking with Zoom on it, and or maybe try. I don't know if you're on a desktop or a laptop, but maybe try a different location, because on mine I did notice the lighting in my room made a difference on that when I
Yeah,
was doing it.
there's a box also next to the one that says mirror my video, which I have unchecked. It says I have a green screen, and when I
Take off
select
the
it,
green screen. Yeah, you
well,
don't want
when I
that.
take it off, it says computer does not meet requirements, but I have like the newest and latest and greatest computer, so I don't know, maybe my settings are wrong. But then I click the OK button,
Yeah.
and then it automatically goes back to having checked the
Gotcha.
boxes checked on I have a green screen. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna have to
use it.
point you to Zoom for that one. I
Okay.
apologize because I don't know on that
No problem. Thank
So-
you.
You're welcome.
I do have kind of a comment on scheduling. Can you guys hear me? I
Yep.
can't tell. Okay, cool. On scheduling meetings, I just helped my parents get set up on Zoom because they've got a meeting on April 8th. And so they need a little bit of lead time before they get to it. And so I was on the phone with them and I was like, okay, I'm going to schedule a meeting. And you're only allowed to schedule meetings within like half-hour increments. And so I was like, okay, it's 12:05. I'm going to start this meeting at noon in the interest of not having to wait 25 minutes. And so I guess I'm saying this, if you guys are, on the phone with clients or something and you kind of use that same logic, they couldn't get into the meeting because it was already in progress. So if you're going to schedule a meeting, I don't know if you guys know a way around it. Don't schedule a meeting that starts 5 minutes ago because it didn't work for me. Just a little tip.
Oh, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for being